Ladies and gentlemen, it is the Express. It is Kevin Tompkins. It is Nate Polvogt. I hope that you enjoyed the world's most exhilarating scoregami making tie in NFL history. 40-40. Packers not over the Cowboys. Cowboys not over the Packers. I'm sure that will have nothing to do with the NFC standings going forward. But we're going to talk about some the games here. Maybe not so much that game because we got our fill of that game. But Nate, what's up, brother? How you doing?
I mean, we could have ended the night on a weirder note as far as games go, but a 40-40 scoregami tie. I almost have no words. And you and I watched the entirety of overtime in the last minute and a half of the fourth quarter together here, and I still have no.
Yeah, it's not.
Right.
It's not great.
All right.
It just kind of is what it is. Like they honestly, Green Bay probably should have lost that based on the clock management. Speaking of clock management, it's funny. We'll be back in about 12 hours. Myself and Pat Fitzmaurice, by the way, of Fantasy Pros. Speaking of clock management, but look, that's not that show. This is this show, The Express. So let's talk about the game that happened in Dublin, Ireland, where Skylar Thompson got robbed, by the way, after that game. Hate to see it, certainly, but Steelers and the Minnesota Vikings. Steelers win 24-21. It was like the Kenny Gainwell experience because Jaylen Warren, late minute scratch due to his injury. We know Caleb Johnson is pretty much in the doghouse. So it was a Kenny Gainwell game, 19 carries, 99 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 catches for 35 yards. Look, I'm looking at this like a blip on the radar. Like this is all very circumstantial in the workload. 77% of snaps, 72% of routes. Like I'm not looking at this like this is something that can be built off of. He's going to have a role in the offense even with Jaylen Warren, but this is by far the best game Kenny Gainwell's ever had in his career. Like career with games where he's had 10 plus carries. He's been like a sub 3.8 yards per carry guy. So for him to do this is a massive anomaly, and I'm not expecting this going forward. But it was kind of the story of the day, and it was hard to ignore it. And if you played it, awesome. If you didn't, and you got burned by it, you're hating life. But other than that, it was like DK Metcalf, 5 for 126 and a touchdown. Most of that on one big play. 88% of the routes. Calvin Austin got hurt. So that kind of had a rotation of Ben Skoranek and Scott Miller at wide receiver. Darnell Washington was the tight end. 90% of snaps, well over Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith. Just goes to show you can't start either of those guys. I mean, just not even thinking about it. I think I pretty much went over everything with the Steelers. But is there anything you want to add to that? Because it's like. The game didn't really do anything for me as far as updating priors.
No. I mean, whatever. Kenny Gainwell's performance, if you have him in best ball, really freaking good for you. Congratulations. Don't think this is a repeat. This is a guy who is a career mid-50s running back in fantasy pretty consistently through his career. So, yeah, good for Pittsburgh. Good for Kenny Gainwell today. This isn't something that's going to be a repeat performance. However, DK Metcalf, this did open my eyes to him a little bit more. I haven't been super excited about him despite the production through the first 3 weeks, but it's really looking more and more like he is the guy in this offense. And if Calvin Austin is hurt, DK Metcalf is just going to continue to see important volume from Aaron Rodgers. So maybe the one takeaway on the Pittsburgh side for me is that I trust DK Metcalf a little bit more going into week 5.
And I don't even know where I am with that too, because I do know that Aaron Rodgers loves to funnel targets to his top receiver. But this also is an Arthur Smith offense too. So I feel like more, something has to kind of give with that. But, DK, I do worry that defenses are going to end up bracketing a guy like DK Metcalf, or at least adding some more attention, because looking at this passing game, outside of maybe the running backs, who are you? You're not scared of anybody else. You're not scared of Darnell Washington, his moving like a glacier to get to the first down marker.
Right.
You're not scared of Ben Skoranek and Scott Miller. You're not scared of that. So I feel like if it's going to be Calvin Austin's going to be out for a week or two, I feel like that could be like a net a neutral for a guy like DK Metcalf. But, obviously if you have him, you're starting him for the most part. But over on the Minnesota side, Jordan Addison came back today after a 3-game suspension. Between him and Justin Jefferson, that looked pretty good as far as like consolidating targets. 11 and 9 targets for Jefferson and Addison respectively. Both went over 100 yards, 4 for 114 for Addison. So if you have him, that was definitely a welcome back, to fantasy lineups. 142 air yards as well. Justin Jefferson, Planet's best wide receiver, 10 for 126. 100% route participation there. TJ Hockenson was okay, 4 for 39, kind of keeping that story going where it's like TJ Hockenson is like very much less than in this offense with like Carson Wentz. Xavier Scott, the backup running back for Jordan Mason, because Jordan Mason doesn't really catch passes that much. He caught 3 for 15 today, but he was like an actual focal point in the offense today because that role kept growing as like the game went along. 8 targets, 6 for 43 and a touchdown. So he's probably going to be a waiver wire guy as far as a guy, if he's going to be involved in the offense a little bit and as a contingent play for Mason, like I'm totally fine with that because, we want the receiver turned running back, the Tyrone Tracy, the Antonio Gibson types that are going to have like some receiving chops. So I do like that. And Jordan Mason was like just okay on the ground, 16 for 57 on the ground, but 80% of the team's rushing attempts. So, typical Minnesota, pretty condensed in the passing game, although Xavier Scott is a new kind of wrinkle there. But I'm interested at throwing a couple bucks if you have an empty bench spot on.
Well, I think with Xavier Scott, as long as we know that Aaron Jones is out, he's obviously going to fill that Aaron Jones role, which is more focused on the pass catching, because like you said, not something that Jordan Mason does. And today I expected a little bit more out of Jordan Mason, kind of above 3.6 yards per carry. We didn't get it. I thought we'd get a 100-yard game out of him in Dublin. It didn't happen. What I do want to talk about, though, is Carson Wentz. Like, look, are we at a point where we have to talk about, is he serviceable? Like what he did today, 30 of 46, 350 yards, 2 touchdowns. You have the 2 interceptions, but still in 2 quarterback leagues, is he playing well enough that while McCarthy is out and with these weapons, is he someone maybe you should roster as like a 3rd quarterback in 2 quarterback leagues? If he stays hot, if he continues his production with McCarthy out, he's worth at least a bench spot.
I mean, 2 quarterback leagues really, it's like totally fine. Like all those quarterbacks that are even in the starting like radar are rosterable. Tight end QB 13, QB 5 last 2 weeks against Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, at Cleveland next week, then a week 6 bye, then the Eagles and the Chargers, and then Detroit and Baltimore after that. Like it gets hairy there. So I'm not sure where I want to start him, but I think no matter what, he should be rostered. He's almost like if you have to start him, I guess it's fine, but I'm not like going out of my way to do it because we know the pumpkin game, what that looks like for Carson Wentz. So sure. Like it's not great. And he did at the very end of the game, like he did not look great at all. Right. That was definitely something that, it was not great to see, certainly, but yeah, 2 quarterback leagues. You're not starting him in like redraft leagues, single quarterback leagues. You're not rostering him there. But let's go over to the next game, Atlanta and Washington. High scoring affair, 34-27. The Falcons beat the Washington Mariotas. We saw the return to form for Drake London, 8 for 110 and a touchdown. Looked more like Drake London than he's looked in the past couple weeks. Pretty condensed there, although he didn't get a lot of Darnell Mooney. He had 10 targets last week, but only came down with, he had 2 targets this week, 1 for 15. A lot of Bijan though, 17 for 75 and a touchdown, 4 for 106 on the ground through the air. So look, Bijan obviously is a must start no matter where you're going. Tyler Algier, 16 for 51 and a touchdown as well. So like deeper, like maybe even like 14 or 16 team leagues where he's in like flex consideration for that. Like I don't mind that, but like Kyle Pitts, I'm a bit worried about Kyle Pitts, and that was because of Darnell Mooney, which kind of relegated Pitts to like being the wide receiver or the 3rd target in the offense. But if it's going to be more of a battle between Mooney and Pitts, I think you could probably lift Pitts up to like streaming tight end status. You're probably starting him anyway, but I think it's, a little bit dicey where I think it's more volatile and people want to admit with Kyle Pitts. But look, 93% of the routes like that, you'll take that all the time. That's way, way more than you were getting last season when the Falcons were running a lot of 11 personnel and that was getting Ray McLeod on the field. You're not getting that this year. You're getting Pitts as like the main third target that's getting routes. So that's what you like to see. It's just the kind of, the lack of symbiotic stuff between him and Mooney is where I have the worry. But how do you feel about, this past, I mean, Drake London, I don't think we have to talk about him, but like the Mooney Pitts thing, like where are you on that?
It's hard to take a side on it because it just feels so inconsistent. And so
take a side, damn it.
All right, fine. I'm going to take a side. I think it's Kyle Pitts.
All right.
It's nothing against Darnell Mooney, right? But I just think like right now it's kind of a toss up. But at a certain point, Kyle Pitts is the more talented receiver. We all know this, and it's not just because I was heavily invested in him coming out of Florida in rookie drafts before he even ended up in Atlanta, but it's legitimately he is the better talent, right? And we always want to say talent wins out, and I feel like it will in this situation. A guy like Michael Penix needs this. We were talking about before the show, he has bricks for feet. He just cannot move. So he needs guys that are big targets. That's Kyle Pitts. So eventually that's going to take over. So I'm going Pitts over Mooney, and I love Drake London in this offense, and I'm glad he's finally seeing the volume.
Yeah, that was definitely good to see. Penix threw for over 300 yards today, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Having Bijan certainly helps to kind of, take some of the focus off of Bijan there. If the passing game is going, if Drake London's going, then that's stuff you like to see. Over on the Washington side, like not a great game from Mariota. The running game is still pretty much a mess with, Ja'Cory Crossy-Merritt, Chris Rodriguez, who, both efficient, but in this kind of game script there where they were kind of coming back for a little bit. And then Jeremy Nichols as well, like is still getting involved. Like those guys, JCM and Chris Rodriguez both had 35% of the snaps to lead the running back. So it is a full blown committee where I don't think even like Bill at this point is startable. He's like, it feels like the same exact backfield, just it's 3 parts instead of 2, where with Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler last year, where you didn't feel real great about starting either guy. And you knew like the running back role was like, it was comprised of those guys. Now you got to add a third with McNichols, like kind of taking a little bit more off the top with Rodriguez and JCM. So it doesn't feel good there. And then in the passing game, no Terry McLaurin, no Noah Brown, no John Bates. So it was very, condensed. You saw a little bit more Ben Sinnott, although he played more of a blocking role because he is a fullback. Did win fullback of the year in his last season in college at Kansas State, by the way. Just want to throw that out there. But yeah, Zach Ertz is whatever, 2 for 21. Deebo Samuel led the way, but it was not like anything that felt super great. I think he left some yards on the table as well too. But this Commanders offense without Jane Daniels looks pretty kind of old and busted right now, but you're still starting Deebo. Like Deebo feels like the best bet for targets, and you're going to get obviously Terry McLaurin back too, but like it doesn't feel great. It feels like it's missing obviously Jaden Daniels.
Well, yeah, without Jaden Daniels, there's just the best way to say it is there's no pizzazz to this offense, right? Deebo Samuel's 100% startable. I think Zach Ertz is in streamable territory at this point. Yeah. And you're hoping for points if you're a streamer. You're not rostering him long term because it's just you don't know what the volume is going to be there. Obviously today, 2 catches, 21 yards, 4 targets. My question, Kevin, I've been curious about this and knowing you, watching Luke McCaffrey. I mean, he had 2 catches for 21 today, but what he's doing on special teams, do you think that earns him a little bit more work in this offense, especially with McLaurin being hurt?
I mean, right now it's pretty much, I thought actually Jalen Lane was going to be taking a lot more of the routes today. He didn't. He took 42% of the routes. Luke McCaffrey actually took quite a bit, but Chris Moore, the veteran, former Raven, former Arizona Cardinal, ran 87% of routes today, which I feel like they're not super confident in guys like that. with Luke McCaffrey, with Jaylen Lane. So that's what's leading to like some of the Chris Moore is not a sexy name. He's like over 30 years old. He feels a lot like David Moore, like with Carolina, where like those guys get hurt and it's like we need a guy that just literally runs routes, and that's what Chris Moore is. Like he had 3 targets, didn't catch one on 87%. He was literally running cardio today. So it doesn't feel great for like any of those ancillary guys right now. I think you need a big statement where like Jaylen Lane, I don't think they run a lot of 11 personnel anyway. So like that really hampers a guy like Jaylen Lane or Luke McCaffrey or like Noah Brown. Like if Noah Brown was active, he would have been the one running 75-80% of routes. So yeah, it doesn't feel good for any of those guys. Let's go over to the next game, Buffalo and New Orleans, which was a lot closer than the line kind of gave away. At one point, it was 16.5. The Bills were favored by, but the New Orleans Saints are kind of spry. I will say, they're a lot better than I think people give them credit for. And this is in Buffalo as well. Buffalo did win 31-19, putting a scare into some of the survivor pools out there. Going over to the Buffalo side, to kick it off, it's typical Buffalo. You had spread out routes, you had spread out targets. Khalil Shakir, 5 for 69 to touchdown. He feels like the guy, just like last season, that you feel the most comfortable in the passing game. Starting every week, but he's probably more of like a low end flex no matter what. And then even with like Dalton Kincaid, he scored a touchdown, but Jackson Hawes, the third tight end, had the most snaps today, 53% of the snaps, to Dalton Kincaid, the third most snaps out of 3 tight ends, 37%. So it does not feel good for a guy like Dalton Kincaid. You want the guys, especially at tight end, to run at least 65% to like feel good about a workload, where he is not even getting that. So it's like they're all just mixing in with like the Keon Colemans and the Josh Palmers and the Curtis Samuels, who was randomly activated today, ran 39% of routes. Yeah. So awesome. That doesn't feel good. James Cook feels fucking great. 22 carries, 117 yards. Like he's running a lot more routes, taking a lot more snaps than he has in the last 2 seasons. Yeah. He's really put a gap between him and Ray Davis. So where you got to look at James Cook as like probably a top 5, top 6 guy going forward at running back.
Lou and I talked about this on Friday on the Friday Vibes show with James Cook, where this just feels like that season where, I think he could realistically be RB2 or RB3, the way that he's playing and the volume that he's seeing, and his importance to this offense, which for me kind of negates guys like Dalton Kincaid. Again, he had 1 catch today for 28 yards. I believe it was his only target today.
Yep.
Yeah. He had 2 targets, sorry. But this offense is so spread out, but James Cook is the one person that despite the rest of it being spread out, he's going to see volume. So he's my favorite person outside of Josh Allen in this offense. I like Khalil Shakir, but I don't know, man. These receivers feel like a trap to me every week because we don't know who's going to be the one. There are weeks where it is Khalil Shakir, but next week it could very easily be Keon Coleman. I'm having a hard time. If I don't already have one of these guys rostered, I'm not trying to acquire any of them. And I have a hard time starting a lot of them week to week. I'll start them in a flex. I started Khalil Shakir in a flex and it paid off for me this week. But if I start him next week in a flex, I don't know that it's going to work out for me.
Well, with Shakir, you get the added benefit of like having like an extension of the run game. That's pretty much what Khalil Shakir, his low ADOT. He had a 1.6 yard ADOT today. Like that dude thrives on yak stuff. And I feel like that specialized role is something you can kind of set your watch to more than anything for Josh Palmer, anything for Keon Coleman, anything for Elijah Moore, any of those guys, the tight ends. So that's where I feel the most secure about that role. It is still a role that is very dependent on how the game script is going. Obviously the yak stuff, you got to be able to get that in the situation properly. So I feel good about him, or at least more so than the other guys. I will say that. And then going over the New Orleans side, on a day that Chris Olave threw an interception, that was pretty nice, but not a lot of volume. Like it was not a great day for the passing game. And even, they ran the ball a lot better than typical. Like Alvin Kamara, 15 carries, 70 yards. But the thing is, through 4 games, he's not getting like anything close to the receiving work that he's gotten, in past seasons. And that could be some age. That could be some of, what Kellen Moore is doing. So like, we got to start looking at what these guys are. We're through 4 weeks now. So now is the time where we can't rest on what Alvin Kamara has always been to what Alvin Kamara is a guy that may be lacking in some efficiency on the ground, is still going to get that work, but it's like not great week to week. And an offense that's not going to score a ton of points, then if you're not getting the receiving work on top of that, you're probably a low end RB2 and you're really only a flex play.
Well, the thing with Alvin Kamara year after year has been that he approaches at least 90 targets almost every season. He's on pace right now for 40 targets? Because he's got,
he's on pace for 55.
Games. 55. Okay. That's not enough. It's not enough at all. Kendre Miller seems to be kind of edging his way in here, which is interesting. 11 carries for 65 today. I don't know if this is going to be a consistent thing. Maybe it was just kind of game script related. This specific matchup against Buffalo, they saw something where Kendre Miller was maybe going to be more effective. But if Kendre Miller becomes more involved in this offense, not that I'm interested in rostering him, but it makes me wonder if it's time to move off of Alvin Kamara.
I mean, if you're drafting him, he's not like a trade. Like nobody's going out to like want to trade for Alvin Kamara. So like that's the thing. I think you've made your bed with a guy like Alvin Kamara. Kendre Miller, like he only had 17% of 31% of routes or snaps. I'm sorry, 17% of routes. So he was not really out there on like anything more than specific like rundowns. So that's where I have a little bit of issue where it feels more smoke and mirrors than like anything that's really like tangible that we can like act on.
Sure.
Where we're trying to grab Kendre Miller off of waivers or anything like that. Like, I don't think that's the case yet, but yeah.
I don't think it is either, but in a couple of weeks, if this trend continues, which I'm not sold on Kendre Miller. I'm just throwing out a hypothetical here because I know that there are people who watch this game today and are like, oh, I've got to go get Kendre Miller. I just wanted to have, because I don't think you should right now. I don't think there's any reason to try and acquire Kendre Miller, but in 2 or 3 weeks, I mean, if you're in a deep league and he's still out there, maybe grab him if your benches are super deep and see what happens. But in a reasonable redraft league, there's no way you should be grabbing him right now.
Yeah. Devin Neal hasn't been active last 3 weeks. That's the thing that gave Kendre Miller some runway. His snaps are coming up the last like 4 weeks. He's been up from, 15%, 50%, 27%, now 31. So that's at least where he's worked his way into like being the solid number 2 there. But yeah, you're of like the contingent plays, he is like very much in the middle on a team that's not going to score a lot of points, where the workload is ambiguous at best. If something did happen to Kamara, because you probably still work in, Devin Neal or like any of these other guys like Veals Jones, who switched to running back, his position, in the offseason, ended up getting a couple snaps, a snap. Oh. So like, that's where we're at with the Saints. I thought Juwan Johnson was going to have a better day. The role is still strong, so you're starting him no matter what. 81% of the routes, just 3 for 28 today on a day where Matt Milano for the Bills was not playing. Matt Milano, very, if I see that he is inactive, like I'm usually going out to play that tight end, like in DFS or something like that. Just not a great game. It wasn't a great game for some of the volume. Chris Olave scored the only touchdown from Spencer Rattler today. But let's go over to Detroit and Cleveland. 34-10. The Lions beat up on the Cleveland Browns today. Obviously the Lions offense is something you have all those pieces. David Montgomery kind of ran into that brick wall today, 9 carries for 12 yards, but Jahmyr Gibbs on the strength of some efficiency, 15 for 91, and a touchdown. So you definitely love to see that. A couple catches for him as well. Monroe St. Brown, another 2 touchdowns today. I don't know if you guys heard, he's pretty good. Jameson Williams going to the air yard store with 176, one of the leaders of week 4 so far. Go to the Marquez Valdez-Scantling school of getting unrealized air yards, by the way. So not one of the greatest days. I saw somebody on Discord calling him trash today, and I don't think he's quite that trash yet. But I think you're still starting him. You know what Jameson Williams is at this point. Sam Laporta 3 for 39, like kind of a not great game. It was really just a consolidation in the offense between Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, I don't think you have anything to add with the Lions before I go over to the Browns.
Nope, let's go to the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, Browns, not really much of anything there. Although, look, I think at this point, you got to start Quinshon Judkins no matter the matchup, because no matter the matchup, he's looking Nick Chubbian. And I say that because I think he's like a really, really good real life, like NFL rusher. I think the receiving stuff has starting to like come along slowly. Caught all 4 targets for 33 yards today. It feels like a guy like Dylan Sampson is really out there just to kind of fill in some of the gaps. Same with Jerome Ford, probably more pass protection with that. But, Quinshon Judkins feels pretty good as far as like, eventually he's going to get stymied by like, a random defense we don't, suspect, I guess. But Quinshon Judkins at this rate, considering how he's been doing and has been very efficient in doing it, I think he's as close to he's not quite most start, but he's like on the periphery. Like looking at his last couple outings, 10 carries, 61 yards at 6 yards per target. Against Green Bay, obviously 94 yards and a touchdown, another 82 yards and a touchdown today. So I think we're at the mid-level RB2 with Judkins, to where I think we're almost at the point of starting him no matter the matchup.
Well, he's got 49 carries over 3 games, Kevin. It very simply, and I said it this morning on our Start Sit show with Lou, for me, Judkins is just looking at so much volume in this offense because Joe Flacco's your quarterback. It's very clear what this team wants to do. And you and I talked about it when we were doing our positional previews. This is very clearly a team that they drafted heavily on defense. They believe their defense is very good, which, as it turns out, it actually is really not very bad at all. Very good at stopping the run, unless it's Jahmyr Gibbs, apparently, which we all kind of predicted. But they also just want to run the ball. And Quinshon Judkins is a guy that they feel like they can give it to 20 to 25 times a game and have a chance to win. Not that they were close today, but it didn't feel like 34-10. It felt for a while like this team was in it. I mean, at least in the first half. And I think that's all they're looking for. And they want a higher draft pick, and they're okay with losing a lot of games, but they're going to run the ball down people's throats. And it's not going to be Dylan Sampson. It's not going to be Jerome Ford. It's going to be Quinshon Judkins getting north of 20 carries almost every freaking week. What he does with that, I can't guarantee. You can't guarantee. No one can. But with that kind of volume, like, sign me up to try it out.
Yeah, volume. The marriage of volume and efficiency is what you're looking for in a running back, and that's pretty much what we're getting now. Because look, you're talking about a 40-year-old Joe Flacco. You got to protect him as much as you kind of can. Yeah. And how do you protect an older quarterback? You protect him with the run game. You protect him by just letting him hand it off. And if you have a guy that's going to be this efficient, like, you're just going to keep giving him the rock. So, he's a mid-range RB2 for me, where they've got some pretty decent matchups coming up. I believe they play, I want to say Miami. I'm pulling it up right now. If my spreadsheet will click, they had Minnesota at home, then at Pittsburgh, Miami at New England. Like, that's not a terrible schedule. I think he can just keep going, doing what he's been doing. So, mid-range RB2. I definitely like it there. Let's go over to New England and Carolina, 42-13. New England kind of put the boots to Carolina, who, look, I know Carolina just beat the Falcons 30-0. I think the thing we know is we don't know anything at this point, even through 4 games. Because, trust me, we all want to think we know everything, but like, between these like lower level teams, obviously Carolina is probably there. And even I would say New England is kind of there too. Like, to quote Ozark, we don't know shit about fuck. But as far, true. It is true. It is as true a statement as you'll get.
Here's how I looked at this game, Kevin. Like, really simply, the Carolina offense accidentally helped the Carolina defense accidentally helped the Atlanta offense beat themselves.
Yeah.
That's how that worked, which we don't know shit about fuck.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, but In terms of, because Mitchell Evans scored a late touchdown. Like, you're not obviously rostering him. Tommy Tremble was there, scored a touchdown early on because Jatavion Sanders is out. Was able to get was out. Obviously, Jalen Coker's still out. Ted McMillan saw some Christian Gonzalez today who made his return, so that certainly didn't help matter. Still 8 targets, 4 for 62. Like, as a floor play game, like, I'm totally fine with that. Chuba Hubbard was okay, 10 carries for 49 yards. They spread the ball around a little bit. Like, Rico Dowdle got some run, then Trevor Etienne got some mop-up work late, as they were just trying to get out of Dodge in that game. But going over to the New England side, I wanted to call him Demario Diglis, the way Stephon Diggs has been used, as he's pretty much been Demario Douglas. But I can't even say that because, like, Stephon Diggs was out wide like 63% today. He'd been in the slot the last couple games, and I thought that was where he would be like ending up. But still 6 for 101 on 7 targets. Like, it's nice to see a pulse out of him. It still does not feel good to roster any New England Patriots passing game, tight end, wide receiver. Like, even Hunter Henry scored a touchdown, but like, it still doesn't feel good. It's only had 2 targets, 2 for 39. So, like, he's a pure streamer at this point, I think. And then looking at the run game, like, we were all hoping this was going to be the Trevion Henderson game, but we do forget that Mike Vrabel hates fun and has the veteran deference, like, more than almost any other head coach. So he did give Ramondre Stevenson quite a bit of run today, 59% of the routes, 57% of snaps. Still, Trevion Henderson ended up getting in the end zone, 7 for 32 and a touchdown, a couple catches for 14 yards. We're looking at a slow burn with Trevion Henderson, so I think we just have to be patient with him. Once our teams are eliminated on Thanksgiving, I think we can finally put Trevion Henderson in our lives.
Well, I never had high hopes for Trevion Henderson this season anyway. I'm not invested in him in any sort of redraft season long. I have exposure to him.
Speak for yourself.
Dynasty. Well, you should have listened to me earlier in the freaking season, Kevin. I was preaching this.
Did you see him in the preseason? Did you see him on that training camp video against Washington? I'm easily swayed by young, sexy rookies.
You like quads. I get it. It's fine. We all love quads.
It's not even quads. It's efficiency. I want it.
I know. But the thing is,
Bucky last year.
Look, dude, you're as old as I am, and you've been around for all of Josh McDaniels' tenure in New England. I know, we're old balls here. And the thing about Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel is they both don't trust a rookie. It doesn't matter how good they are. They might as well be Aaron Rodgers. They're just not going to do it. They're going to hang on Ramondre all freaking season. And is it frustrating as hell? Yes, it is. But this is what these guys do. And you're not going to teach an old dog new tricks, as they like to say. And this is just where we're at with Trevion Henderson. He's going to get a little bit here and there. And like, he'll have a couple of pop games, but for the most part, this is Ramondre Stevenson's backfield until next season. Boo.
Well,
but
it didn't work out for them, but maybe it'll work out for us. That's where I was at with Trevion Henderson, but
basically,
yeah, it is what it is. Let's go over to the upset of the day, I guess. People are upset one way or another with this game. The Giants and the Chargers, 21-18. The New York Football Giants, who I did not believe they played football up until this point, got one over on the Los Angeles Chargers. It's nice to see. The Giants fans had hope for about 25 minutes when Jackson Dart rushed that touchdown up the middle and looked pretty good. And then the other shoe dropped with the news of Malik Nabers, likely an ACL tear. We'll get like the confirmation on that tomorrow, but that's awful. It's probably early enough in the year where I think you're looking at him being fully good for 2026. But for this offense going forward, it's going to get a lot more boring in the passing game to where, we love Jackson Dart. I think he's about where Drake May was last season, where like he's a guy you can stream on like good matchups, but there's going to be some downside, and you have to be willing to accept that to get the rushing stuff. But I still think he's a better start than like the Geno Smiths and the Michael Penixes and any of those guys. I think that's like the tier he's in, but he's above that just because of like the rushing stuff. But we're looking at Wan'Dale Robinson. Look, Wan'Dale Robinson, 2 weeks ago, he had like a 15-yard ADOT. And I feel like they don't know what to do with him on a week-to-week basis, where it's like 1 week it's a 15-yard ADOT. This week it was 0.8-yard ADOT on 5 targets, 3 for 14. Like they don't know what they want to do with him. But Darius Slayton, he's not even that old. He's like 28. But like Darius Slayton's going to get a lot of routes. One of Jalen Hyatt or Bo Collins is going to be getting a lot of routes. Theo Johnson's going to be boring. He caught a touchdown today. I honestly think this is going to be Cam Scadabo's team going forward in terms of that is the guy that you want, and they're going to make sure that they feature him because I do think he's got a lot more rush or receiving upside in addition to just getting the volume on the ground. Devin Singletary is going to be involved, but he's one of the best pass protection running backs in the NFL. So I think that's where the value lies for him, and he's going to get some carries here and there. But what do you think? I think this is Cam Scadabo's team going forward in terms of that's the only guy I really want to roster. Like you can roster Wan'Dale, but I don't feel like any sort of confidence in that. So if you have Cam Scadabo, I think you're like, well, it sucks because you don't have Nabers, but you're probably getting some more receiving stuff on top of like pretty heavy volume.
Scadabo had 25 carries today. Efficiency wasn't super great, 3.16 yards per carry. He only had 2 targets, but he had 8 targets last week. Like you combine those 2 weeks now that we've got no Malik Nabers, and this offense is going to get very condensed for the rookie. It already was fairly condensed today. Then Malik Nabers got hurt. So there you go. Which way it condenses will be interesting to see. I feel like we're going to see more Theo Johnson than you want, Kevin, but I think it's a real possibility that we see a fair amount of Theo Johnson kind of starting to get featured in this offense against sans Malik Nabers. But at the end of the day, that doesn't make him fantasy relevant. Cam Scadabo, though, is the one person. And I want to play around with Jackson Dart in some lineups a little bit here and there, see how it goes.
Good DFS play.
Yeah, exactly. Then that's more where I'm looking at him is in DFS. I'll stack him with Scadabo probably, quite honestly. I could see Scadabo being a guy who ends up rest of season with the absence of Nabers, with Jackson Dart as the starting quarterback. We could see him averaging 6 to 8 targets a game rest of the way. That doesn't seem unreasonable to me at all.
Like, it's tough because you're going to get because of this offense not being great, and then you're losing Malik Nabers on top of that. You're looking at some inefficiency going forward. You're obviously the volume's going to be there, and I think that you're going to be tinkering with probably 4 to 5, upside 7 to 8 targets here and there. You're probably going to get to about 65, 70 targets in total with Scadabo, probably close to 200 carries there. So that's you want that. And then you're getting, you're hoping that he can just get 4 yards a carry. That's what you're hoping for. So I think that's perfect for an RB2 that you can plug in and, you're hoping he gets in the end zone. On the other side for the Chargers, not super great, but Quentin Johnston is keeping up his massive, early season, 13 targets, 8 for 98 and a touchdown, 91% of the routes. Ladd McConkey, 6 targets, 1 for 11. I think you got to start asking some questions here about, because last week I was saying these 3 wide receivers seem interchangeable in terms of who's going to be the wide receiver 1 each week. Now at this point where it's been Quentin Johnston leading the way the whole time, I mean, I don't want to say QJ is the wide receiver 1, but I think he's putting some pretty good distance between Keenan Allen, 5 for 37 on 6 targets today, and Ladd McConkey, obviously 1 for 11 on 6 targets. Not great. One other thing too, though, Arondé Gadsden is out of the genie will not be put back in the bottle. Up to 50% routes today. It's not super great because yes, the Chargers are a high pass rate over expected team, but you're asking them to support a 4th target on top of those 3 receivers and a Marion Hampton. I think that's a tough ask, but the fact that he's starting to get routes over the Tyler Conklins and obviously Will Dissly's been out, I think that's really good for the offense in general, the offensive environment. I think adding a guy that's a former wide receiver to an offense versus a guy like Tyler Conklin, we know what he is at that point. I think it's only going to just gives it another dimension. So I definitely like that. You're streaming around to Gadsden, like you probably picked him up last week, or at least had him on a watch list. You could probably still pick him up, seeing that the routes came up, but just know that there is some danger with he's not going to be startable most weeks unless like one of those receivers gets hurt.
Yeah, and look, I love the Gadsden emergence. He's nothing more than a streamer at this point right now, but I really do think you're right. Like, we have to really talk about Quentin Johnston here. I think he is the legitimate wide receiver one, and what that does to Ladd McConkey is not good, especially where we were projecting him, especially where we were drafting him and what we were expecting out of him. And Amari Hampton has emerged as another threat in the passing game, which is going to further hurt McConkey. Long term, I'm not worried about him. If you have him rostered in Dynasty, you're going to keep him. You're not trying to move him right now, especially because his value is very low in comparison to where he was before. And once we get Keenan Allen out of here, Ladd McConkey's fine. This is Keenan Allen's farewell tour, as Lou and I talked about this morning. But in redraft, I am worried about it. I mean, I'm worried about, is there a point where his volume sinks so much on a consistent basis that he becomes not startable? And I've wasted what was sometimes a second or third round pick on a guy, depending on format, on someone I can't start week 6.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to go that far. I think Ladd McConkey. I think we're going to get better days out of Ladd McConkey. I think it's because of the sticker shock and seeing what Quentin Johnston has done. And,
Sure.
I've seen what you've done for QJ. I want that for me. That's where I'm at with Ladd McConkey. So I think it's kind of like you've got what the pendulum, is one way, well, the other way. I think we're going to get the pendulum coming back for McConkey here. I think that's going to be a point of emphasis, at least for the offense, to get him involved, because I think Ladd McConkey is too good ball in hand to get 6 targets. I think it could be something to have to do with like defensive attention as well. Like, I think people have seen like QJ struggle a lot with like drops and just like down to down consistency, that they've maybe take some attention off of him, and now are seeing him kind of level up here in year 3 to where like, all right, well, I guess we got to pay attention to him now. And maybe that just takes some of the guy, that attention off of McConkey, to where, we're going to see McConkey get. I don't think he's a wide receiver 3 right now. And I would say he's probably in the same, kind of class as Brian Thomas Jr. right now, where those are highly drafted guys that are clearly struggling right now, that are clearly not producing. But I think they're going to be, because in this, it's one thing to be in Jacksonville and your offense is like almost a total mess. This offense is still pretty legit. It's still, high pass rate or expected team, a lot of volume, like Justin Herbert. So I'm not super worried environment wise, but I'm just worried a little bit that, eventually we'll get the pendulum to come back the other way. Also, I didn't want to, not lost in this. Amari Hampton, 12 carries, 120 yards and a touchdown, plus 5 targets for 37 yards. Absolutely consolidated the running back work. Yep. 90%, almost 90% of snaps, 93% of the running back, the team rushing attempts. So you love to see that. Amari Hampton is locked in as a running back 1 as you can get. Do you want to hit some of the questions that we've got, by the way, in the chat? People have been asking stuff here. Let's go through some of these, and then we'll hit the rest of the games here.
Yeah, let's do it, man. We've got the first one here over on Twitch. Jolt ENG. Kevin, up 30 with Sutton versus Nixon Dobbins. What are your thoughts here?
I have that, although I'm up 20 and it's not Knicks. It's I have Dobbins, and my opponent actually has, I just talked to you about that actually, Sutton and the Broncos defense. So I would say up 30, I think not bad. I think you're probably 66% chance, I think, to take that. Although I do, the role for is strong for Dobbins.
Yep, no, I agree. This isn't a question so much as a comment from the man, the myth, the legend, Brad Bolt. He is the head of our NFL division, so go check out that channel as well, Optimus NFL. Go check out the website, optimusfantasy.com. An article from yours truly here next to me. Well, I guess Kevin's yours truly. Up on the site now with a breakdown of all of the games this week. Don't miss it next week. We've got Rendon Die over on YouTube, Kevin. 2 questions. First one, How much fab for Woody Marks? And would you trade BTJ for Alvin Kamara? So I guess both questions all at once here. I have Jamar Chase, BTJ, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jerry Jeudy, Chris Godwin, and Rice coming back soon. His running backs are Devon Achane and Hubbard. His depth sucks. So what are we doing here?
I'm not trading anything for Alvin Kamara right now. We just talked about Alvin Kamara, and just the lack of the receiving stuff is really taking a lot of luster off. And I'm not trading a first round pick for Alvin Kamara. I'm sorry, I can't do that. As far as the fab on Woody Marks, we'll talk about Houston there, but I'll just say I'm probably using at least a good quarter to the third of my fab on a guy like Woody Marks. I'm glad that our guillotine, by the way, that you got chopped in. So happy I have Woody Marks in that. Like, that gets to start him now. We've been sitting. Back in the day in week 1, his name on the site was Jaquavius. Now it's Woody. It got changed back. So yeah, I'm definitely putting some fab on him this week if he's out there. Definitely like what I saw today, and we'll talk about that here.
Yeah, go Woody Marks. Jared CS over on YouTube as well, Kevin. Would you start Bo Nix or Justin Fields tomorrow night? Both obviously playing on Monday Night Football. Been switching them back and forth with horrible luck. Which way are you leaning here?
I'm probably starting Bo Nix, just like I think it's a path of least resistance with the Bengals offense versus Miami, who, Miami's probably more middle of the road, but I think the Bengals defense is just an absolute sieve right now. And I think, with Bo Nix and the Broncos offense really highlighting Cortland Sutton, and then obviously you can get the big play stuff with Marvin Mims. I think Bo Nix is probably due for, a top end quarterback week here against the Bengals. It depends on how spry Jake Browning is. If they want to go ahead and push the Broncos, that's going to be great for Bo Nix. And then you add the rushing on top. Yeah, I would start Bo Nix over Fields.
I would absolutely start Bo Nix over Fields. Again, something we talked about on the start show this morning. This feels like a get-right game for a Denver team that didn't think they were going to be 1-2 heading into week 4 on Monday Night Football against Cincinnati, who was supposed to have Joe Burrow. So it's supposed to be a much tougher matchup. This is almost like a get-right game where you don't put the brakes on in the fourth quarter. You just keep going and scoring and make your team feel good, because this is a Denver team that I really think needs it. So I'm all in on Bo Nix as well, Kevin. Matt C on YouTube. Hey, fellas, in my half PPR league, I just traded away Keenan Allen, Emeka Egbuka, and Cam Scatabo for Amon-Ra St. Brown and Rachaad White. The current wide receivers are Marvin Harrison Jr. and Jamo, no space. Running backs are Derrick Henry, Achane, and Amarian Hampton. Did I do okay? Kevin, how do you feel about this?
I think you probably could have gotten another piece outside of better than Rachaad White there, but you got the best player in the trade. I just don't like giving up decent assets. I think Cam Scatabo is your running backs are your running backs. So Cam Scatabo is not really starting for you. I guess it's really just kind of consolidating some of the bench stuff and assuming, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jamo. I don't think I would have traded Egbuka with those. I would probably be, because you're probably starting if you're starting 2, you're probably either starting both Lions guys, obviously him or Marvin Harrison Jr. So I don't feel great about your wide receiver 2. I'd feel better with Egbuka, but I don't mind it, I guess, because you're getting the best player.
Yeah, Amon-Ra is obviously the best player. I really like Emeka Egbuka. I like him in this offense. I probably wouldn't have moved off of him, but also I see why you did it, and I don't hate it. We've got Edge LOL.
No.
Okay.
You're not trade. No, you cannot trade Gibbs for Egbuka and Jacobs. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, let me read the question for all of our audio listeners here, Kevin. Let me get to that part of it here first. But obviously, we know where he's going here, folks. Edge LOL over on Twitch wants to know, do I trade Jahmyr Gibbs for Emeka Egbuka and Josh Jacobs? For me, that is also a resounding no. As much as I love Emeka Egbuka to death, and Josh Jacobs is playing very well, Jahmyr Gibbs has the possibility to be the RB1 every week. He's right up there with Bijan Robinson for me. Saquon Barkley's kind of fallen back a little bit as far as I'm concerned in that level. Absolutely not. No, I would not make that trade.
Yeah.
No, you can't do it.
Yep. Should I start Chase Brown or T. Higgins tomorrow in the flex? I'm probably starting Chase Brown just because it's a no commodity of the volume there versus a lot of volatility with Jake Browning. Are you same on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't love the efficiency with Brown, but he's going to see enough volume that it hopefully won't matter.
Yeah, and I'll tell you right now, pick and save by week as well. Me and Nate talked about that before the show as well. Let's take a look here, go through some questions. We still got 6 games to go through. Josh Allen for Gibbs straight up. Brock Purdy. Look, if your league is deep enough where you have Brock Purdy, Drake May, and Dak in waivers, Josh Allen for Gibbs straight up, like that's a run to the podium. You're getting probably at least the top 2 running back for Josh Allen. Like run, don't walk, run to go make that trade.
Yep.
Traded Nabers for Garrett Wilson in 2026 second. Felt like I had to do it. Still hurts. It doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel great for the person you traded Nabers to, but I would still want Nabers over Wilson in a second. I would have probably wanted a first and maybe even another player on top of that.
Yep. Same.
But I mean, it is what it is. You already made the trade. It will hurt, but fingers crossed for Garrett Wilson for you. Herm's up in here. I don't know about y'all. I'm sitting here looking at the waiver wire. It's honestly horrible besides Tony Marks and the still vastly underrated Alec Iamaner. Yeah, I agree. Week 4, this week's waivers is not going to be like super fruitful. I'm telling you right now, I'm not putting Romeo Doubs in the wide receiver section. I'm just telling you that right now. I don't care how many touchdowns that guy scores. Maybe I'll put a little addendum into the article about that. But let's got a couple more questions here. Nabers going down leaves me with Jacoby, Alec, Diggs, got him a McBride, and then the follow-up, any wide receiver targets for McBride in a 12-man league. Like you could probably get away with, Garrett Wilson. You might even be able to do a Jamar Chase on that based on how the offense is right now. I think you could get away with it. I think you could do that.
I was going to say, well, given the landscape I think you could get away with it. Absolutely. It's wild to say, but you could.
You could do Zay Flowers, who is criminally underrated. You could maybe do a Dunze. Like, I think you're still in some pretty good territory for wide receiver. You could do, depending on how you feel about Tyreek Hill, I think he's like fine. You could probably do Devontae Adams. Like, I think you're still good. You're obviously talking about a top tight end here, that's going to score a ton of points. So I think you need to shoot for the moon. And then this last question here real quick. BTJ for Rashee Rice. I'm 0-4, have JSN, London, Pittman, and Addison. I don't mind that. You have clearly enough depth with your wide receivers. So getting a guy that's maybe underperforming for a guy that you're probably going to be getting in week 7, where you don't have to start him, but you're obviously have guys that you can start in the meantime. Like, I do like that.
Yeah, if you can cut bait on BTJ for Rashee Rice at this point and you can weather until he comes back in week 7, I'm all for it.
Yeah, hell yeah. Let's go over to, because we have still 6 games to talk about. Let's talk about Philly and Tampa Bay here. Philly beating up. Oh, I don't want to say beating up. They've been playing it very fast and loose with the last couple games against the Rams and games against the Tampa Bay Bucks here. But 31-25, Eagles beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Look, Saquon Barkley, this is why you're not drafting him. You probably shouldn't have been drafting him, where you were basically paying for the 2024 production, hoping that was going to carry over 1-to-1. You're almost at 3.2 yards per carry through 4 games right now. Like, you got a running back 13 day out of him today, but it does not feel anywhere close to what you had last season. Like, you're getting the string of all of the really bad games in a row for Saquon Barkley. And then the passing game, like Dallas Goedert had like manufactured touchdowns, both of them. One was on one of those like Travis Kelce pop passes, and then another was like, of almost kind of the same thing. But they were still very manufactured and that counted as passes, even though they probably more look like run plays. AJ Brown putting up some cryptic stuff on Twitter after an 8-target, 2-catch game. Denny Carter is on high alert for the wide receiver tweet. So we'll be on the lookout for that. Devonta Smith, 2 for 29. Things still condensed for the Eagles passing game, but not the greatest of days. Of course, Jalen Hurts got in the end zone as well. Anything else to add? Because the Eagles are pretty status quo.
No, you covered it all. I don't want to bore the people.
I mean, you're not boring the people. But for the Tampa Bay side, Chris Godwin back in the lineup, stepped into 10 targets, 3 for 26. So maybe the efficiency is still on the on the bench there, but it's good to see him get 151 air yards. It wasn't super great to see him play more on the out wide and out on the outside versus where he's been his most productive, which is in the slot. That could have something to do with like some of the injury stuff, because that's where like Sterling Shepard's been playing a little bit. They've all been like rotating in the slot with Micah Parsons being in there. Same with Sterling Shepard. So perhaps that works its way out with, when Mike Evans comes back into the lineup. Micah Parsons had 10 targets as well, 4 for 101 and a touchdown. Like, he feels very Jahan Dotson-y in terms of his rookie season, where that dude was sun running on touchdowns. But you're still starting him almost no matter what now, because of the strong role in the offense with obviously Baker Mayfield and the Bucks. Bucky Irving got over 100 yards through the air, caught a touchdown. Look, that decision in drafts between Chase Brown and Bucky Irving is really, just tell me about yourself with the guy you draft. That's where we're at right now, because like Bucky Irving looks like a damn star. Right now we're talking about 165 total yards. A dude's consolidated a lot of the opportunity and is like massively efficient. Like, we should be talking more about Bucky Irving and like the running back 4 or 5, like that range of running backs outside of Taylor and Bijan and guys like that. I think we should be really talking about the like Bucky Irving in that kind of tier, like just below the elite.
Well, which is crazy, because you think about this Tampa Bay offense and the type of scheme that they run, it's so pass heavy. But Bucky Irving, again, like today, 102 yards on the 5 catches. He had that touchdown.
Yeah.
So if he's going to be involved in this passing game, you absolutely have to talk about him as a top 5 running back right now.
Yeah. James Cook or Bucky Irving rest of the season. Like, I think that's a discussion. So him and Devon Achane is a discussion. Him and Christian McCaffrey is a discussion. Like, that's where we're at here. That's where we're at with Bucky Irving right now. And
I think
it like almost feels weird to say, but I don't think it is.
It's not. It does feel weird, because I think we all assumed that Rachaad White was continue to be somewhat involved. He'd given us no reason to think he wouldn't be involved, but he's just not.
He's involved in the way Justice Hill is involved, where you could set aside, some snaps and routes, and he's going to do his thing, and he's pretty insulated with like that role. But when it comes down to like the pure, like non, low value, like all the high value touches are pretty much going to Bucky Irving. So
1,000%.
That kind of consolidation is what you want. Like, but Rachaad White can get a couple catches here. Like, he's a really good pass catcher, but when push comes to shove, everything that's Bucky. Important is Bucky. Yeah.
It's Bucky.
So, yep. Love that. Going over to Houston and Tennessee. Houston blanked the Tennessee Titans. I don't know if we really need to talk about the Tennessee Titans, because look, this is an offense that's a literal work in progress. Cam Ward is like, he's working through it. There's nothing. Calvin Ridley, you can't start right now. Even Alec Iomanner, you can't start right now. The role ran a season high 90% of routes today. Him and Tyler Lockett both ran a season high routes. That's kind of where we're at, with the Titans. They're trying to figure out who their guys are going to be this season. So That's where we're at. And then Tony Pollard, it almost doesn't even matter. Like that, he's on an island of like his own little efficiency for like the carries and stuff he does get. He's like fine, but he's a very low upside, like running back too right now. Like that's, you can start him and that's fine. He's going to get in the end zone, but like there's nothing super exciting about him. You're definitely not starting anybody in the passing game here. And then even Houston wise, like it doesn't feel super like trust me, no more alike passing game here than for the Titans than like with CJ Stroud and outside of Nico Collins. Nico Collins is a rock star. But there's so much like uncondensed routes here with, I'm sorry, it's 2025. Xavier Hutchinson should not be getting 72% of routes. Christian Kirk looks old and slow. Jaden Higgins caught his only target for a touchdown, still ran 38% of routes. Jalen Noel, 28%. Like it's so uncondensed, and you can't like start any of the ancillary guys. You can start Nico, who you should be starting going forward. That's Woody Marks. 4 for 50 and a touchdown through the air, 17 for 69 with another touchdown on the ground. 49% of the running back carries, out-snapped, out-routed Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb was involved, but it was Woody Marks' day where he is going to be the top waiver wire guy this week. And I think that you can feel good about him, especially if he's going to be getting this kind of market share in the receiving game. Like that was always the thesis of the play, where if Woody Marks is getting the stuff that Nick Chubb, because Nick Chubb has never historically, he's never been a pass catcher. Like going back all his years in Cleveland, we're looking at like a 30 target upside. I think Woody Marks is like almost halfway there or more than that on a very limited role. So the fact that we could be getting 60 targets out of Woody Marks and then probably 160, 170 carries at some efficiency, even though this offensive line is terrible, like sign me up for that, because that receiving stuff just gives you a floor. Anything you get in the rushing game is a cherry on top.
Well, I think the exciting thing about Marks, and he's someone that we've been low-key talking about in this offense, and it makes sense with it's Chubb, Dameon Pierce. Nothing to be super excited about, especially Pierce with Chubb with the knee injury history. But 4.1 yards per carry, a full half yard per carry more than Nick Chubb behind the same offensive line, which is bad. But if Marks can have that kind of efficiency against a bad line, imagine what happens if they actually fix their play. Like, this is a kid who I want rostered now, and in Dynasty, if there's some way that you can acquire him for cheap, if the league manager isn't super excited about it, and it's like, oh, flash in the pan, go get him. Because I do think there's a future for this. They need this kind of back in this offense, the dual threat type of guy. It's going to change CJ Stroud. He's had a lot of issues the last 2 seasons after a stellar rookie season, and this is a part to this offense I think that can help everyone around it. An efficient running game and a running back that can be a dual threat changes the way defenses have to focus on an offense. It might even help the offensive line a little bit, Kevin. So I'm with you. Woody Marks is the number 1 waiver wire acquisition this week. It's not even close.
Yep. Let's go over to the Rams and Colts, which like people are looking at that as the game of the day. Rams beating the Colts, finally giving them a loss on the season, 27-20. Puka Nacua is going to absolutely slaughter Cooper Kupp's receiving record, like fantasy record this season. Dude's right now at 42 catches for 503 on almost 50 targets through 4 games. Like this was always the thesis of the play. Dude improved his yards per route run from last week to this week. Like he was at 4.11. Now he's at 4.19. Do you know how hard that is to improve a 4 yards per route run 4 weeks into the season? Like, yeah, Puka Nacua is going to absolutely slaughter everything as long as he stays healthy. And the offense, defense he has to face the next 3 weeks: San Francisco, at Baltimore, Jacksonville. No world beaters there. Then he goes on by. Like this is going to be, Puka Nacua is going to, if he keeps going like this, he's going to be the 101 like Cooper Kupp was after 2021. And then also, don't forget about that Devontae Adams guy too. Because Devontae Adams, like him and Puka are simpatico. 4 for 56 and a touchdown today. They both work super well together. I think I lost Nate here. but I will just keep yapping without him here. But yeah, definitely like what we see out of the condensed Rams offense. Not much else. We had Tutu Atwell for 188 and a touchdown on his only catch. That was a big play later in the game. Nothing much on the tight ends. Tyler Higbee, 2 for 25. That's always been a pretty spread out thing in terms of the tight ends there. Kyra Williams, 13 for 77 on the ground. Just 50% of the running back carries there with Blake Corum. Last couple weeks, he's been working in with, Kyron Williams has been like a closer for the Rams, but a little bit less efficient today. Earned 4 targets. Like, he's totally fine as like a handcuff kind of play. It's still Kyron Williams' backfield, though, and we're not worried about that. But I'm just super excited about Puka Nacua and seeing we're going to get, like, as long as he stays healthy, he's going to shatter records, like, in this Sean McVay offense. So definitely love that. Then on the Indianapolis side, still a lot to like there. Michael Pittman, 10 targets, 5 for 41 and a touchdown. 9, his role is as strong as ever. No Alec Pierce. You got a little bit more of Adonai Mitchell, 3 for 96. Of course, he should have had a touchdown if he hadn't let the ball go, before he went through the end zone. Josh Downs is like perfectly fine as a slot only player, 4 for 24. You're probably not rostering him, or he's probably at the end of your bench if you are, and I wouldn't even mind it. Like, he's probably not worth keeping in this specific role right now. Tyler Warren, though, 91% of routes, 5 for 70 on 6 targets. So you definitely love to see that, keeping that strong role at tight end. Jonathan Taylor, still awesome. A bit of a muted game for him, though, 17 for 76. Still a strong 81% of the team rushing attempts there. 5 for 20 in the through the air, I should say. Still, almost 15 fantasy points. Like, that's totally fine on like a floor game for the Indianapolis Colts. We'll go over to, let me see what we got cooking in the chat here. Michael Ryan here. Trey Benson for May and Dynasty. My QBacks are Allen, Tua, Geno. Some of playable RBs are Jeanty, Benson, Henderson, Warren, Sharps, and Gainwell. For May, you got Allen and Tua. Yeah, I think the running backs are like totally fine. I think it's pretty even. Quarterbacks retain their value a lot more than the running backs too. I would say if you're not contending, I would trade Jeanty. If you're closer to contending, I would probably hold on because I think you can get by with Geno and Tua as your QB2. But if you're closer to contending, I would probably hold on to Jeanty there. Jason, would you guys trade a Mecca, add Josh Jacobs for Zay Flowers and Achane? I don't think I would do that. I still like, Devon Achane as far as a guy that has like 100 catch upside this season. And I think Zay Flowers is criminally underrated in the Ravens offense where, you're looking at guys like Mark Andrews is coming on a little bit too, but outside of like, you got your DeAndre Hopkins, guys that are going to be running routes, but not super, consistent week to week. Emeka is getting a lot of the touchdown volume where that's not really super sticky, even though he's done it a few weeks. And then Josh Jacobs is like just a pure volume play that, can get in the end zone a few times in a good offense. I think I would still take the Zay Flowers and Achane side. But let's go through anything else here. Let's go over to the next game here. Jacksonville and the San Francisco Giants here. Jacksonville did upset the San Francisco 49ers 26-21. So I'm pulling that up right now. For Jacksonville, it's still a mess on offense. Like, it doesn't feel super great rostering like any of those guys. Brian Thomas Jr., 7 targets. Him and Brenton Strange tied for the lead there. Both had 7 targets. Brian Thomas Jr. had a little bit more efficient day, but still 5 for 49. Not super great there. And then Brenton Strange, 6 for 45. He's been the most consistent player in the passing game, but it still like doesn't feel super great. Travis Hunter still used a little bit more in the receiving game. Still played about 60% of the snaps on defense. A little bit used, a little bit more, 3 for 42 on 5 targets. Like, it doesn't feel great enough to where now you can like throw him in your starting lineup. But like, it's like baby steps for Travis Hunter. Parker Washington, they built the plane out of Parker Washington last week. This week, 2 targets, no catches. So give up on that ghost if you did for whatever reason. Travis Etienne, still very strong role, almost 60% of the team rushing attempts, 19 for 124 and a touchdown. Definitely love to see that. And Bashal Tutin is not seeing a ton of touches. Only had 5 opportunities today, just 4 carries and then 1 catch for 8 yards. Quinn Allen still has like a role for some reason, like the pure pass catching role. 30% of routes there. It's kind of eating at some of the upside for like the other 2 guys. So like I don't like that they're using 3 guys for basically 2 roles. But that is what it is. And on the San Francisco side, Christian McCaffrey is still awesome in terms of a lot of the receiving stuff. 11 targets, 6 for 92 and a touchdown. Before today, he was wide receiver 10 if you took out all of his rushing stuff. And that's just in his receiving for Christian McCaffrey. So definitely building on that. You love to see it, even if the efficiency stuff isn't there for Christian McCaffrey, 17 for 49. That's what, less than 3 yards per carry, I should say. So not like super great from like an efficiency standpoint in terms of that. But Juwan Jennings is back. 2 for 24, 5 targets, like not great. 78% of the routes, like you can expect him to go up on that. Ricky Pearsall was hurt leading up into the game and he was questionable. Came back for 46. Like that was fine. But yeah, you did get Brock Purdy back. This offense should round into form a little bit more going forward. Just like they kind of fell into a little bit of a trap game with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Moving on to Kansas City and Baltimore, 37-20. I think a lot of people were shocked by that. We did get the return of Xavier Worthy in that game, though. 5 for 83 and 133 air yards, which was really nice to see. And him running almost 72% of the routes on 8 targets. That's great to see. Marquise Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster both caught touchdowns. Same with Tyquan Thornton. Didn't do it on a lot of volume, though. But Juju Smith-Schuster ran the most routes on the team, which is not something you really want to chase. But Travis Kelce, 5 for 48 on 5 targets. He's just plodding at this point. It's not something that like you feel super great about. You're just hoping that he like runs into like one of those games where he gets like 8, 9 targets and catches 7 or 8. You're not getting a lot of upside there. It's just really like catch stuff there. The running backs for the last few weeks have not felt great. Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt. We saw some more Brashard Smith though, which was nice to see in kind of that like Jerick McKinnon role, where he caught 3 passes on 4 targets, and then a couple rushes there. So that was nice to see. We could see something burgeoning there with Brashard Smith. So I would keep an eye on him in terms of a guy that could have a role growing at the expense of either Kareem Hunt or Isaiah Pacheco. Or it could just get even more gross with all 3 of them doing like 30% of the routes or 30% of the snaps. And it just is like a gross timeshare. Over to Baltimore, obviously Lamar Jackson left the game with a lower leg injury. So we'll see what goes on with that. We did get Cooper Rush in there. So that took some of the luster out the passing game. And then obviously the Ravens got down. So it wasn't great to see for like Derrick Henry for like some of the volume stuff there. Only 8 for 42. Justice Hill had a really long rushing touchdown at the very end of the game when all the starters, and then he had a receiving touchdown as well. Mark Andrews, 7 for 30. Like historically, he's been bottled up by the Kansas City Chiefs. So like to see him get like volume and still get 10 fantasy points at like tight end, that was still like tight end 12. So that's pretty good there. Zay Flowers, 7 for 74 on 8 targets, like totally fine there. But yeah, that's where you're getting into like the really murky stuff with like Rashad Bateman, 2 targets, Tylan Wallace, 2 targets, DeAndre Hopkins, 1 target. Like it feels so gross outside of Zay Flowers and to an extent Mark Andrews, to where you don't feel good about starting any of those other guys. Not that you really would, but even if you don't feel great about starting Mark Andrews, because this can be what the downside is, especially if it's something that's going to be knocking out Lamar Jackson, for a week or whatever the case may be. And then the final game, Chicago and the Las Vegas Raiders. And I will bring Nate back on because he is back.
Goddamn internet.
It is what it is. I blew through 2 games, though. So if you have any thoughts on Jacksonville and San Francisco, let me know. Also, and I talked about 3 games technically. I blew through the other 2 games. Anything else we got to talk about with either Jacksonville, San Francisco, or the Chiefs and Ravens?
Just please God, I'm done with Trevor Lawrence. That's all.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much well said there. You know, ETN had a nice day though. Christian McCaffrey's keeping up the receiving stuff, so you like to see that. Certainly, Brock Purdy's back, so that should kind of round out some of the efficiency there. And then for the Chiefs, obviously Kelsey doesn't feel good. It's nice to see Xavier Worthy, provide an element of the offense, like as far as explosivity we haven't seen. And then Brashard Smith, I was very interested in seeing him get a lot more work. Looked a lot like the Jerick McKinnon role that we've seen.
Yes.
But the only thing is that could go one of 2 ways, where Brashard Smith takes some work at the expense of either Kareem Hunt or Pacheco, or it gets even more gross with like all 3 guys taking like 30% routes. You can't start any of them.
Oh, that kind of feels like where it's going to go, because it's the Kansas City Chiefs. It's Andy Reid. And
I want to believe it's not going to go that way, but
we know it's going to. And I love Brashard Smith as much as you do, Kevin. Believe me, but we know how this is going to go.
Yeah, we've seen that. We've read this story before. We've done all this. But the last game though, Chicago and Vegas. Nobody really wanted to win this game. It felt like it was kind of gross for a little bit, especially the Raiders. But the Bears did end up winning 25-24. The Roma Dunze train, just like the Express, keeps rolling. 4 for 69 and a touchdown on 88 air yards, 83% of routes. Definitely love to see that. Like DJ Moore is still like kind of fine, but he doesn't feel great to start. Luther Burden is still kind of mired in the 20 to 25% routes range at 27% today, but 2 catches for -4 yards. Olamide Zaccheaus is still kind of working there at 68% of routes. It feels like a placeholder for Burden. We've been talking about that for weeks, though. Looks like that game last week where he had the flea flicker and the touchdown, 100 yards, not much to build off of there, when you're seeing this week. Cole Kmet, no Colston Loveland, all blocking guys behind him between Durham Smythe and Steven Carlson. Who, by the way, before today, his last game action in the NFL, I believe, was in 2019. So hilarious to see that with the Cleveland Browns. I had to look that up on PFF because I'm like, I've seen this name before. He's been on practice squads for like the last 8 years. And I was actually right that he has been on practice squads for like the last 8 years. So, but Cole Kmet, 8 targets, led the team today, 3 for 46 on 104 air yards, which, if you know tight ends and you know about like air yards, that kind of stuff is really only reserved for like the Darren Wallers, like the prime Darren Wallers. Like you don't see that. So that's a aberration for like what we know Cole Kmet can do. DeAndre Swift feels like he's whatever. He's like the whatever RB2, 14 for 38. He had a touchdown. He had 6 targets, 4 for 22. So he doesn't feel like super great, but DeAndre Swift was I love to use this phrase in my article for a guy I don't really have any feelings about. They're present and accounted for. He was definitely, he raised his hand when they called for attendance. That's DeAndre Swift. He was in fact alive today. Anything else on the Bears before I go to the Raiders?
No, I saw this coming with DeAndre Swift. I said it all off season. This is how Ben Johnson treated him in Detroit. I don't know why we're so surprised and why people had him puffed up so much.
Yeah.
That's all.
Mm-hmm.
We can move on. Just need to say my piece.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders weren't like super great. They're condensed. They're Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker with both 100% route participation. Jacoby Myers, a down game, 4 for 30, team leading 7 targets. Brock Bowers, 5 for 46. Geno Smith threw like 3 interceptions, like by like the midpoint of the third quarter. Like it was not great, but it was the Ashton Jeanty day. 2 touchdowns receiving on both of his targets for 17 yards, 21 carries, 138 yards on the ground and a touchdown, 68% of the team rushing attempts. Raheem Mostert even got he was active for the first time this season. It was nice to see that they cut out some of the riffraff with Zamir White and Dylan Wabi, letting Mostert get involved. And he was 4 for 62. It is what it is, but it was nice to see Ashton Jeanty finally look like the guy that we drafted at the end of the first round, the beginning of the second, to where he's the RB1 right now, going into the Monday night games. So it was nice to see. I don't know if this is going to be like certainly not the norm going forward, but it's nice to know that he's like alive and we know he can do it. We just want to see him string together like consecutive, like decent games to where we're feeling like we're getting the value that we picked in that. Obviously we haven't seen it until now, but it's nice to see it.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that we saw 19 carries week 1, but it was 2 yards per carry. He had the touchdown, but it was still only 12 fantasy points in PPR. Yeah. Nothing exciting. He had the 2 catches for 2 yards that week as well. And we expected so much more, especially because I think a lot of us looked at what he did at Boise State and the workload he carried. And it just felt like, yeah, this guy's going to slot right into an offense that really on paper isn't going to be able to throw the ball much outside of Brock Bowers. They've been able to do it a little bit better than I think we expected, which is maybe hurt Jeanty's efficiency early on. They haven't expected a ton out of him. Again, 19 carries week 1, but then that kind of regressed to 11 in week 2. Yeah. But I think now we're seeing a situation where Jeanty's growing into the role, and yeah, we're week 4 now, and we shouldn't have maybe expected so much and panicked so much through the first 3 weeks, because I think this is who he is in this offense now.
Yeah, and it was really interesting to see that the Raiders could not capitalize on all the injuries that the Bears had, especially on defense. With Jalen Johnson went on injured reserve, Kyler Gordon was out. They're losing a couple of defensive tackles. Grady Jarrett was out. TJ Edwards is out. Like, they had all these injuries. This felt like almost a smash spot for a guy like Bowers or even like Myers. And it was surprisingly, I guess it shouldn't have been surprisingly, the first round running back that we were drafting, that end up taking advantage of that. But you would think that the Bears could have like folded a little bit in the passing game, and that really didn't happen. So, I think that's really kind of got to, wipe some of the rose color out of our glasses for a guy like Geno Smith, where we know that this is the rock bottom, like basement for Geno Smith, and maybe the floor isn't as high for a guy like that. And it sucks because we all love Brock Bowers. We all love Jacoby Myers in terms of guys that can consolidate targets in this offense. But, it also leads me to believe like maybe Chip Kelly just doesn't know how to use a guy like Brock Bowers, because the fact that we saw Luke Getsy of all guys be able to use a guy like Brock Bowers with Aiden O'Connell and, all these like scrub quarterbacks, like the fact that they could coax the best rookie tight end season, the best rookie receiving season. And then we got Chip Kelly, adults in the room. And this is what we're getting out of Brock Bowers. Like, that does not feel great.
No, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. This Vegas team feels like they're a while off. Like, if you're looking at some of these guys long-term and assets long-term, outside of Brock Bowers, and Ashton Jeanty, there's nothing really exciting or worthwhile in this offense.
Yeah, it's not great. But you know what? Live to play another day. And that's what we're going to do.
Exactly.
Because we got through 12 games. We were a little late because of the, Sunday night football. But you know what? We got through 12 games. We talked about a lot of players. I talked about 3 games by myself, and that's okay. They went to the righty to get some of the games out of the way, and that's okay. The internet said, you know what? We're not doing it this late.
No, it was mad at me, but it is what it is. Because if you dropped a question in the chat that we didn't get to tonight and you're still watching, please head over to our Discord channel. The link is in the show description. We're there to answer your questions 24/7. We've got tons of people over there who are just fantasy football fanatics, so make sure you check that out. Just in case we didn't get to what you asked tonight, we want to make sure we help you out.
Yep. I know, we got on here a little late. We wanted to just kind of get through a little bit more of, what we had on tap here, because it is so late. We're looking at like, it's 1:30 Eastern time right now. So with that, we want to get a little snoozing, because less than 12 hours from now at 12 Eastern clock management, my show, I'll be on with Pat Fitzmaurice of Fantasy Pros. We're going to talk about a lot of some of the interesting stuff in that happened in week 4. Of course, we're going to talk about the Green Bay Packers and how that kind of, with a Packer fan, we're both Packer fans, so that's going to be a very spirited discussion. Probably going to talk some more about Brock Bowers. I think I definitely want to talk about that. So we'll be on this same channel. Go and hit the like, hit subscribe, check out our Discord. Links in the description of this video. Anything else, Nate, before we get out of here?
Head over to tools.optimusfantasy.com. Check out the massive amounts of data. 35% off for your first 3 months with the code BIPOCALYPSE. It's good for roughly another 23 minutes. So if you're watching right now, this is your chance. And if you sign up for the Gold Jacket package, you get access and you are locked into any tool that we add in the 2025 season at no additional charge. So go check it out.
Oh, yeah. Sounds great. All right. For Nate, I'm Kevin Tompkins, and we will see you maybe not same time next week. Maybe we'll try to do it a little bit sooner, but I think because we were doing it at 9:30 Central, which is 10:30 Eastern.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to try to do it when the games end, as soon as the game ends going forward. So as soon as Sunday Night Football ends, we will be on here on this channel, Optimus Fantasy.
Yes.
So check that out, of course. For Nate, I'm Kevin Tompkins. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.